Hi guys, I'm Kelly. I'm a recovered heroin addict. Wow. Can I say that again? I'm a recovered heroin addict. I love the way that rolls off. I got sober in another fellowship where I'm an incognito heroin addict, so this is like the coolest thing I have ever experienced, like looking out here with my peeps. I love it. First, I want to say thanks to Jeff for asking me to be here. I mean, it's such an honor. I mean, initially I thought he might have made a grave error. I was like, what? I know God wants me here for a reason. Thank you, DJ, my husband, for introducing me. He's gotten to see me at my absolute utter worst. Also, I've been blessed to, oh God, it's gonna make me cry looking over. That's not a good start, right? I'm at a convention and I start to cry almost immediately, and that's not good. My family's here, and that's my mom, my dad, my little sister, and as you guys and my fellow heroin addicts know, we drag our families through the mud, and they're, can you guys hear me? Am I, too loud, too quiet? All right. We drag our families, I drag my family through the mud, and it's such an honor to be up here, and I'm going to try to not cry anymore, at least till I can get some words out, but, when I was thinking about what I wanted to say here tonight, to try to really reach out, and if there's truly, I know it's a cliche, like reach out and touch one person, but that's literally what I'm thinking of. Because if I think of all you guys, I'll pass out of here from fear. I was thinking about summing up my life. What does that look like, and this book, the big book, I know mine doesn't look like a big book, but I got a cool little nifty big book made for me. This big book sums up my life. So as I tell my story, I kind of pull little pieces from this book because this book saved my ass. It saved my ass. So there's my first curse word. I'm already messing this up. But let's get this story started. I was born in 1981 in Houston, Texas, to this lovely family, right? Came from a good family. They worked hard. They, had these great hopes and dreams for me. And the word I would use to sum up my life was I was an escape artist. I was always just not quite comfortable in my skin, and I always thought that it might just be a little cooler to be someone else, or a little more comfortable to be someone else, or to, when I joke tonight, I'm like, this is my Stevie Nicks dress. This is so maybe you guys don't notice it's me up here, right? This is that self-centered fear that I carry around, that by the grace of God in these steps, I have a way to walk through without shooting dope over today. That being said, when I look back over my life, that's probably one of the most noticeable things for me, is that even as a small child, I was very imaginative, I was very stubborn, I wanted things done my way, and I would throw tantrums if I didn't get it my way, and this was genuinely upsetting to me. I mean, this was minor stuff, but I would just come unglued. My family tells stories about me, thrashing my little feet till they would bleed when I was a baby. I mean, I'm self-destructive as a tiny little kid, just kind of wanting out of my skin. One of the funnier stories that I can think of from my childhood, and it just gives you guys a glimpse into what I like to refer to as the ism, the internal spiritual malady, that thing inside me that just makes me a little bit tense and a little bit fearful, and that thing that eventually led to a mental obsession to then put dope in my body, which then led to a physical allergy, which caused me to want to put more dope in my body, right? So it all starts with this ism, right? And I can trace that back to childhood. One of the funnier stories, I was about, I've got this good life on the outside. I don't have anything really to be unhappy about. I don't. On the outside, but on the inside, I'm not right. I'm not comfy in my skin. And one of my various hobbies as a child was riding horses, and I always like to tell this story because it's just pretty funny. So I'm riding horses, and I go to this horse camp, and I'm about 8 years old, and there's this girl who is 15, and she's cool, and I'm just idolizing this girl, you know? It's just, she's everything that I want to be. And bottom line, like, I assumed her identity, guys. Like, I started writing this chick's name on my papers at school, and my parents can attest to this. My teachers call, and they're like, my name's Kelly Elizabeth, and suddenly I'm going by Brooke, and my parents are just a little confused. Like, the teachers are calling, and why is your daughter, is her middle name Brooke? And they're like, yeah, no, we don't know. This was one of the more interesting little forays in me trying to be somebody else, trying to be somebody that I wasn't. It was a good little nutshell of where I was, even at 8 years old, just not cool being Kelly, you know? And I don't know how long the Brooke thing lasted. I mean, not very long, you know. When I was about 12 years old, I got bit by the fashion bug, if you will. I grew up, you know, with people always telling me I'm pretty and and that made me feel important. It made me feel special, like I was worth something, right? And interestingly enough, and I'll get to that a little later in my story, it's rather unfulfilling to be recognized for simply being pretty. But at the time, it was good. I was like, okay, good, yay, I'm pretty, I can go do something with that. So at about 12, I decided I wanted to be a fashion model, and I thought that was going to fix me. You know, it's like the world would adore me, and then I would be okay on the inside. And so I'm 12. Like, I see 12-year-olds nowadays, and it's like they're kids, right? They're little kids. But I was certain I was grown up, and that, and again, this was going to be the solution to the uncomfortability that I felt inside. And so I began begging and pleading of my parents to, I don't want to tell the story too fast. Okay. I started begging and pleading of my parents, you know, to let me sign up with this little modeling agency in Houston. They let me do that, and I got to do some really dorky kind of JCPenney catalog stuff, you know, and wear like the stupid little slippers and nightgown in the catalog and look all silly, and, you know, and get to bring that to school. And actually I didn't. I was embarrassed to bring that to school. But anyway, so this starts out my glamorous career as a fashion model, and I did that for a while. It was good. It was okay. But the Houston thing and the little JCPenney, you know, nightgowns and slippers wasn't really working out for me. I had bigger dreams, and by this point, it's the early 90s. I don't know if any of you guys remember this. I'm dating myself a little bit, but it was kind of the whole grunge thing, right? Which is where us heroin addicts come into play. It's like my hero was like Kurt Cobain and Lane Staley and William S. Burroughs. And Gia. I like Gia. I mean, she's dead, but she's cool. So I had some interesting heroes, right? And so I set out to go be, well, Gia. And I got an opportunity to model in New York. So I did another beg and plead and, you know, tantrum throw, really, that's what I mean by beg and plead. Kick and scream to get my way. And essentially, I didn't find out until fairly recently that my parents were, I was really good at manipulation already at this age. Like, I don't know if any of you guys get that, but I had already learned to manipulate people and instill fear in people to get what I want. And what I thought I needed to be okay. That's the scary part. But I found out only recently that I had kind of, by about age, 14 or 15, I had already backed my parents into this corner of either you let me do what I want to do and you support me and allow me to move to New York on my own and drop out of school, or I'll run away. anyways, I didn't really find that out until recently, that's what they were afraid of. And so, you know, that was my first real escape, of course, physically, of like moving away, was I'm escaping high school, getting out of this, and I'm going to move to New York City and have this glamorous life. And anyway, so I get up there. I'm about 16, and I'm in New York City on my own, guys. I mean, it's it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome, right? Like, I was supposed to have a chaperone, and there was not so much a chaperone. I lived in a model apartment, which is kind of like a dorm, with a bunch of Eastern European girls who barely spoke English, and I had a chaperone who was 22 and like to party. So this was fun. I got my first tattoo at about 15 and hid it from my parents for a good while. And anyways, so I immediately kind of start hanging out in the party scene, the night scene in New York City. I loved it. I did. I initially started drinking, you know, started doing some party drugs, right? Like snorting a little coke here and there, and taking some ecstasy and all that fun stuff. And it was okay. It was fun. It was fun. In the beginning, when I look back, I don't know that I initially experienced the phenomenon of craving. I can't tell you at what point that kicked in, but it kicked in pretty quickly. And I'll tell you, it kicked in immediately after trying heroin. I was, the way that I first tried heroin, I was in a nightclub and had done various other drugs. I was already fairly wasted, and somebody gave me a ubiquitous little baggie, and I went to the bathroom to snort it, and what I thought was cocaine ended up being China White, and I spent like the next hour and a half vomiting with a big smile on my face, like this is the most amazing thing I've ever tried. Right? Yeah, my people, you guys get it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. And this was the great escape. I mean, I had escaped to Brooke when I was 8, and I had escaped to New York City to be this glamorous fashion model. And now I had found my escape. I had found it, and it was like my little secret, and it was like my secret weapon, and it worked, guys. It worked. It's so cool to sit here in a room full of people that I know get this. I think for us, and I want to say this for a minute, I was talking to somebody about it a little earlier. Part of it for me, because I love that you guys read this, A Way Out. Because, man, we are some relapsing people, right? I mean, you guys even included it, right? It's hard for us to stay sober, and I don't mean to say that we're different or that our version of the ism or the spiritual sickness that is alcoholism, if you guys get that, is any better or any worse. What I mean to say is that heroin does what heroin does, and it works, right? And it's also some gnarly stuff to get off of. And I was talking to somebody a little earlier about that. I didn't physically, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but it took me so long to physically feel better when I would get clean for those periods when I would get sober, that I would just cave in. I thought, well, this is it. I'm just meant to feel like proud forever. Anyways, back to New York. I'm in the nightclub, and I spent about an hour and a half vomiting, and I immediately went back out to the guy who had given it to me, and I was like, what is this, and where do I get more? And it didn't take long before I was an everyday IV heroin addict. And and the good news is, at the time, like I said, it was the 90s. It was the grunge thing in fashion. It was grunge in music. It was really good to be skinny and scrawny and gray. And this was good. I mean, like, they thought this was gorgeous. Like, Vogue magazine is calling. Like, you look dead, and we love it. Yeah, and so I mean, I'm thinking this is like a double win. I'm like, I can do my dope, and like they're paying me, and it's. What I'm saying is, I had a lifestyle, guys, in the beginning that allowed me to do as much dope as I wanted. You know, that got boring after a while. And by boring, I mean it's like I'm living a good life. I had a job that paid well. I'm a teenager, guys. I didn't know. I spent money like a drunken sailor. It's like, bottom line, I got bored with it. I was just like, all right. I added some other substances into the mix. You guys have singleness of purpose, but can I say it? I was a speedballer, guys. I love to shoot cocaine and heroin. All right. Thank you for that enthusiasm. No. Bottom line, this lifestyle that I was living, I kept it a secret, for a fairly good while. And the trouble is, like, the IV drug use, it's not socially acceptable, right? Like, I couldn't be, like, out at the club and just pull out a rig, and it just wasn't going to work. It was frowned upon. The whole, like, snorting lines, that was cool. People could do that in the open. My friends got worried. They're like, okay, you're taking this a little too far, you're a little too crazy for us. And so instead of being like, oh, well, I guess that's problematic, maybe I should slow down, I went to Spanish Harlem, to the projects, and found some people to hang out with that like to do dope the way that I like to do dope. And again, I want to apologize. I've been fearful about this ever since I found out my parents were going to be here, right? Because there's just parts of my story that I know that they don't know. But guys, it does. It gets nasty. It gets gnarly. We know what shooting galleries look like. I don't need to describe that up here. But I was literally disappearing for a week at a time, just in a place in squalor, and people were terrified, and they'd be looking for me, and I had a boyfriend at the time that was, kind of, I guess, what we call an enabler, whatever. He was handy. Anyway, I had about 3 years of that, of getting away with it, right? It's like, boyfriend knew a little bit about it, whatever, but the important people, because I'm still a teenager, the important people to not know about it, of course, are my parents, right? Because what are those people are totally going to rain on my parade, right? And they did. I'm looking at my mom's face. I shouldn't look over there. When I was 19, I was intervened on, and to my recollection, and mind you, I was out of it. I got intervened on. I flew from New York City down to Houston, where my parents lived, under the guise of a surprise birthday party for my little sister. I did think it was off because it was in November, and my little sister's birthday is in December, so that was weird. But my parents are trustworthy folks. Like, I didn't think they'd lie to me, So I walk into the living room, and it was not a surprise for her, and a huge surprise for me. Huge surprise. I think I am going to get emotional here because this is it's just one of the more tragic, sad parts of my story. It's not any kind of gory war story. It's not anything, but the emotion behind it is absolutely real, because what it looked like was I had a room full of people sitting there crying, sobbing, begging me, please, and all I could think was how I could get to the bathroom to shoot some more dope, because I just could not process this level of emotion that was coming at me. I just couldn't do it. And all that was in my mind was, how could I get to the bathroom to do another shot? That's it. Is that hard for me to admit up here with them sitting here? Absolutely, but it was just the truth, and I know you guys can get down with that. It's not because I don't love my family. It's not because I didn't love my family then. It's because I was under the lash of drug addiction, of alcoholism, the spiritual sickness that is alcoholism, under the lash. And they had me pegged, though, because they kept following me to the bathroom. And I was given the ordinary choice at an intervention, which, at the time, didn't have a whole lot of meaning to me because I still had means. I didn't keep my means for long, but at the time, I still had means. And of course, the option was either you go to treatment or you can't stay in our house. And so, of course, I was like, well, I'm not going to stay in your house. And I took my dope and I left. And I had come down with about a week's, what I thought was about a week's worth of dope. The phenomenon of craving kicked in, and I ended up finishing it in about 2 days in a motel down the road. I went to go hop on a plane back to New York City, because of course now I'm out of dope, and my very first moment of clarity came on, and it hit me. I mean, now I'm out of dope, so now I'm just start the very beginning of Dope Sick, and I'm able to start maybe feeling some feelings and feeling a little uncomfortable, and everything that had just occurred 3 days before at this intervention kind of just hit me like a ton of bricks. And right before they closed that hatch of the airplane, I called my mom sobbing, and I said, I'll go to treatment. The good news is, guys, this is just the very, very beginning of my story in treatment centers. I went to my very first treatment center when I was 19. I wish I could say that the message was not carried to me, but it was. I was so blessed to be able to go to a place where they carried this book, and they knew the message, and they knew what this illness was about, and they knew the symptoms of this illness. They knew that it was a spiritual malady and a mental obsession and a physical allergy. But guys, I just wasn't beaten to a state of reasonableness. That's just the truth. It was like I still thought that it was working for me, and technically it was. It fixed me. I was still at that place where when I did heroin, I experienced the promises, right? And none of that cruddy stuff that begins to occur with us, right? Like I talked about later. I ended up losing these means a little later on. But at this point, I hadn't had the consequences. I just hadn't experienced them, and I just couldn't, other than the fact that I could see it was definitely upsetting my family, I didn't see any reason to stop, and I didn't want to stop. So that was at about 19 years old, and to the best of my ability, I ended up institutionalized in about 21 different treatment centers. Now, I didn't stay at every single one of them the full amount of time. It's like some of them were just detoxes, some of them blah, blah, blah. But 21 treatment centers I went through. Interestingly enough, I didn't tell you guys my sober date, did I? I got sober on October 10th of 2010, which is 10-10-10. I like that one. It started a long, tedious process. What the book talks about it. This is a long, tedious process for some of us. We hope it doesn't take as long for you. Pretty much summing it up. And for me, it was very long and tedious. I began like cycling in and out, and I would use treatment centers and detoxes as a flop, right? It's like it was a place that I was gonna go. I was gonna get kind of a cushy detox. Wouldn't have to go through the discomfort that is kicking, right? Or at least they would minimize it. And I would go, and I would just kind of jump through the little hoops, get my tolerance kind of back down so that I could then go back out and shoot dope the way I wanted to shoot dope without having to spend so much money. I want to fast forward a little bit because I just don't feel like it's necessary for me to go into the gory details. I'm in a room full of junkies, right? It's like we know the gory details. I don't need to tell you what that looks like. Mostly what I need to tell you is the stuff I was feeling on the inside, because I know that there's probably someone in here that's early in sobriety, or that may just be thinking about getting sober, or that may be kicking right now for all I know, and that's the person I want to talk to. I don't need to tell you guys about, I hope I've qualified enough. I'm the real deal, guys. I just love that shit. I love it, and it works. Okay, believe me when I say it. And if I hadn't found something better here, I wouldn't be here. So, like I said, I want to skip over some of the gory stuff, because there's a good 10-year period in there where I'm just in and out, and I'm crazy, and I'm just burning stuff down. I will tell you one story. Eventually, I tore the career down, right? It's like I had gotten so bad, and I was well on my way to becoming Gia that I wanted to be. I was no longer able to show up to work. I would disappear, and I was showing up with track marks so bad that literally, I mean, that even the fashion industry, these people that are all getting high, it's like, even they were like, yeah, this is unacceptable, and they would send me home and call my agency. And so I burned that down. I blew every penny. One of the many times I went to treatment, I thought that I was leaving for 28 days. I was leaving New York City for 28 days and that I'd be back, and I never went back. I just went to treatment, and then they sent me to another treatment center and sent me to another treatment center, and I found myself in in San Antonio, Texas, in the dead of summer, homeless. And I gotta tell you guys, so it's pretty hot here in Scottsdale. San Antonio, Texas is not much better. We have like a humid heat there. In the dead of summer, it was probably about this time of year. And so we're talking, 102, 103 degrees. And I'm literally squatting in someone's garage. Like, I don't even have a way to bathe. I was bathing in a washing machine in the garage. Literally, a washing machine. And, and I was scrawny. It really wasn't cute at all. Like, I'm just this bony mess, trying to wash blood off. And, it's just not good. And guys, the reason that I tell that is because it's like, man, I had this charmed life and this glamorous, amazing life on the outside, and here I am in New York City and living it up, and I'm just this gaping hole inside me, right? It's just so big that I'm willing to give up everything for the one thing, which at the time was dope, the one thing that kind of took the edge off that and made it a little more bearable, to the point where I end up like homeless, living in a garage, bathing in a washing machine. And what I want to say about that is that I still didn't get sober. That is not even it wasn't like I just suddenly looked at my life and I was like, oh, what a mess, look what you've done with your life. That did not happen. It just didn't. I wish that I could say that it was at that moment I just got struck with, oh, you've really just burned it to the ground, but I didn't. I kept going. I literally my actual sobriety date is about the most least dramatic story that I could even think of. My actual sobriety date of 10-10-10 looked like me, like many of us as heroin addicts, having about 3 months sober and suddenly deciding I need to go to the dentist. Anybody else done that? And what that looked like was having about 3 months sober, and I just go to the dentist, and they do a root canal, and my little mental obsession just starts chattering, which is like, well, it's perfectly normal to take Vicodin when you've had a root canal. I mean, everybody does it. You're in pain. It's normal. Just take it as prescribed. Duh. And obviously, guys, I'm a real heroin addict. I can't take it as prescribed. Like, I put it in my body, and that whole bottle is done. It's just done, right? And so that's what I did. The whole bottle's gone. Now I've got the secret, because I haven't told anyone. I was supposed to be 3 months sober. I didn't call my sponsor. I didn't anything, right? I just rationalized this with the little mental obsession, and I'm off to the races. And I put it in my body. The one thing, and this is just utterly by God's grace, guys, the one thing and that little God thought that I remember having at that moment was, I'm not going to lie to myself and tell myself that was okay. That was a relapse. I didn't get honest at that moment with anyone else, but I do remember having that God thought, which is, Kelly, no matter what you do, don't you lie to yourself. And by the grace of God, truly, and I don't use that lightly as a cliche, I mean literally by a power greater than myself granting me some grace in this period, I made it a year on that lie. And I wound up, oddly enough, and then this is how I know it's absolutely a God thing. I started, just like Dr. Bob, it talks about it. Happy birthday, Dr. Bob. Somebody told me it was Dr. Bob's birthday today. I think so. Thank you guys for playing along with my ADD brain. By the grace of God, I found myself on my actual 1-year sobriety birthday. So as in, one day after I took the Vicodin, I found myself at my home group. I had been working the steps just like Dr. Bob. Like after a relapse, I went back out and I immediately dove into the work. I immediately dove in. I made the amends I didn't want to make, the ones I was terrified to make. I decided, holy crap, this really does pertain to me. I was one of those people that I would pick out the steps that looked easy and and do that for a little bit, and then I'd get to the hard ones and I'd be like, no, I don't want an inventory. Ew, no. And I go back out and use, right? And then I'm like, okay, I guess I gotta do the 4th step. All right, I'll do that. Okay. And so I'd do the 4th step, and then I'd be like, oh crap, I gotta tell someone? This step? No. Oh God, I can't tell somebody that. And I wouldn't do it, and I go back out and use. I literally did this with every step, guys, and so this explains that window. Like every step I had to test the waters and make sure it pertained to me, make sure I was the real McCoy. And the whole point of that is I had, in that year, combined with God's grace and my willingness to dive into all of the steps, even the ones that are terrifying, I made it that year. And on the exact day of my real 1-year sobriety day, I sat in a meeting, and a woman who scared me was chairing the meeting, and she opened the book to the page in Into Action, to the instructions for the 5th step, where it talks about we presented to the world we presented to the world the face we wanted them to see. He wanted to deserve a certain reputation, but he knew in his heart he didn't deserve it. And guys, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Just sitting there. And I knew it was a God thing, and I knew it was that crossroads. I knew it was that moment where it was like, either I was going to get clear, raise my hand, and be like, I know I picked up a year chip 3 months ago, but that wasn't real, and get honest. Or I was going to keep the secret, keep it to myself out of fear, out of pride, not tell anyone, and that I was going to shoot dope, and I knew it right then. And so I did. I raised my little hand, shaky as it was, and I got honest. And I continued. From that moment on, that was just a powerful, powerful day in my sobriety, guys. I can't impart to you enough how important honesty is to me. The honesty is so important because I was such a liar. I would just lie about stuff I didn't need to lie about. Lies my default, right, is to lie when the truth would even be simpler, it would be easier, but the lie just comes out. That's me and my own power. And that day, that being such a, holy cow, wow, that fast. That day was a really, really big moment for me in my sobriety. Everything turned on a dime that day. I went from kind of keeping the secret, just like I had always done. What was different for me is that in the past, in trying to keep up appearances and trying to present to you guys what I thought you guys wanted to see because I wanted you to like me or to, whatever, and I was so afraid that if I got honest that, that you guys would eat me or you'd all run away or, whatever that ambiguous fear is, right? Today, what that looks like is, to me, the rigorous honesty sometimes turns into just almost like stupidity. You know what I mean? Where it's like, even my husband, who desperately wanted to see me get sober and to recover, even he'll be like, well, that wasn't necessary. They didn't even ask that. And I mean, but I'm so, like on an insurance form and, like stuff like that. And I'm going into like the gory, like, oh yes, I was an IV heroin addict and and like into the gory details that they didn't even ask for, right? But the truth is, my reasoning for it is because I was such a liar that psychic change, that 180-degree change for me looks like just blurting it out, just relaxing back into the truth and knowing that God's got it. rather than trying to manage what I'm saying just to get what I want, to snatch what I can out of the show. God, you guys, I feel like I just went kind of on a tangent there and lost my train of thought. But do I have till 9:30? Yeah? No? Okay. Sweet. I was thinking I had to wrap it up at 9. I'm so sorry. So, bottom line, where that day got me, my actual raising my hand in that meeting, getting honest, it got me to a place where I was able to let down my guard. I was able to walk into the rooms, into the fellowship, and actually begin to actually be who I really am. And as a result of being willing to, still to this day, guys, there's a lot of this stuff I don't want to do. Like, I'll have a sponsee call, right, and I'll see the name on the phone like pop up, and I'll be like, oh no. Do you guys have those? You get it. Not that one. Oh, it's a crisis again. Yeah. Woo. What's funny about that is I was always the crisis, right? I know probably 100 sponsors out there were like ripping their hair out when they'd see my name pop up on the phone. And there's like karmic debt here, but and it's not. It's what it is I answer it. I mean, it's like I see that name pop up and I answer it. The gift, and this is the whole thing that I wanted to talk about as far as summing up my life as an escape, right? It's like I was constantly, let's divert to the big book. Why not? Jeff was saying that I can't insert heroin addicts because that other fellowship doesn't like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Guys, that thing I was trying to escape all those years, and that I just could not, I was just going here and there and putting this on top of it and putting heroin on top of it and putting cocaine on top of it and running to this place and trying to wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if I only manage it well. What I was trying to escape was this. Page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self which later places us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. And this is the important part for me. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. The reason I wanted to read that is because that's exactly what it is, guys. I just get stuck in the prism of me. Like, I just get stuck in it. Even leading up to this talk, I cave in on myself in fear. Like, do you guys get what I'm talking about? Where it's like, suddenly this whole thing is like all about me and what you think of me and how am I going to be fabulous up here and like, right? And I get stuck on that and I get miserable. What's that about? What is that about? Where does that come from? That is that thing that I have felt since I was a little kid, right? The beautiful part about this, the beautiful part about the steps in God is that I have instructions. There's some stuff to do when that happens. Jeff told me not to pound on this thing. Is it okay if I pound on this? There are some instructions. I got stuff to do. It still happens. I'm not walking on cloud 9. I still get afraid. I get afraid nearly every day. I just have some stuff to do. I spent my entire life trying to self-destruct, right? I mean, it's like I can't think of anything more self-destructive, and there's some other stuff that you guys can ask me about after this talk, because I've tried to self-destruct in just about every way known to man. But there's something extraordinarily self-destructive about jamming a piece of metal in your arm, right? We can all get down with that. I was just trying to escape this selfishness and self-centeredness. That's it. That's all I wanted. What I have gotten as a result of working these steps, and what I am seeking to do today, is instead of self-destruction, I get to seek the destruction of self-centeredness. I was joking with my husband. I'm like, sweet, that means I still get to destroy something. I get to seek the destruction of self-centeredness, right? Because, man, I like to destroy. I like to be destructive. I mean, I do. So how cool is that? That it's like even right out of the book, it told me so. That by working these steps, that's what I'm aiming to do. I'm aiming to get connected to a power greater than myself, which can solve my problem. And again, my problem is me. Heroin was never my problem. You guys get that? Anybody, like, right? Like, heroin was never my problem, it was my solution. And I know we kind of hear that a lot. But that's why I wanted to emphasize so much that it works. Of course it works. I was talking with one of my sponsees the other day, and she's having some trouble with a roommate who's gotten loaded and la-da-da-da-da, and my sponsee is perplexed. She's like, well, she's getting loaded, but she seems so much happier. And I'm like, of course she seems happier. She was in untreated alcoholism. She wasn't working the steps. She wasn't trusting God, cleaning house, and helping others. And of course she was miserable. And of course she's better now. Weren't you? And that raises the hair on my arms, you guys, because that was absolutely the case. If I am not seeking God through the steps, I'm freaking miserable. I want to crawl out of my skin. I mean, I am either going to seek a solution through God or I'm going to seek a solution through dope. I mean, that's it. If we just want to get right down to it right now, that's it. The mental obsession has been removed. That's why I say recovered. The mental obsession, if I haven't put any dope in my body, I'm not suffering from the physical allergy. I don't have the phenomenon of craving, right? So that's good, right? Second part, mental obsession, right? That's been removed. I no longer have the obsession to change the way I feel, to stick a needle in my arm, to do that, right? The part I have to stay on top of every single day is that third part, is the spiritual part, the ism, the internal spiritual malady. We find that in the bedevilments on page 52. It's just sum it right up with, I am unhappy, right? And at any given moment, I mean, the book talks about maintaining. It's about that maintaining the maintenance of my spiritual growth. Every single day, it's the spiritual aspect I got to work on. I don't have to worry about the mental part or the physical part because God takes care of that. As long as I'm staying connected to God. And the way that I do that is by continually taking my own inventory, continuing to do things I'm afraid of, continuing to do things that I don't want to do. I wish that I could stand up here as the girl that was just, I'm not. And I feel like maybe I might have some kindred spirits in here. I'm used to, like I said, standing up in a room full of, I qualify as an alcoholic as well, but they're not my peeps the way you guys are my peeps. Those people get terrified when you start talking about things like needles, So I don't do that in that room. In that room I do. In that room I identify as an alcoholic because I am an alcoholic. But again, you guys are my peeps and my kindred spirits, and I know we gotta seek this. We were out there on the streets, we are some of the most desperate folks I've ever seen. It's like, right? Like we do some crazy stuff. Like seeking that with the desperation of a drowning man for sure, right? When we come in here, it is my belief that it's got to be that same thing for us. And so that ridiculous, stupid, rigorous honesty that I'm talking about is so important for me. The answering the phone for the sponsee that I've talked to 14 times that day and just don't want to again is so important for me. Because the truth is, if I am not doing that stuff, I just get miserable and I want to escape again. My escape today, I want to read again. And this is from page 28. And I know I just mentioned it, but it's important. It's important to me. And it says, we, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. And that is absolutely what I have found in this book. My life today looks like I have a family that actually will allow me in their house. I have a key to these folks' house. Like, I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. I have a little sister that actually flew across the country to come see me here and support me here. I mean, this room, you guys, we are miracles. Like, I never in my wildest dreams imagined I would be standing at a podium with a microphone at the first Heroin Anonymous World Convention. I just didn't. I'm still processing it now. Like, I don't know if I've completely absorbed the fact that I'm actually up here. My life today looks like I can be where I say I'm going to be. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because I was the biggest flake ever, you know. People can trust me today. I mean, people can trust me to not take their stuff. People can trust me, and that's a big deal. Like, because I was the biggest thief there was, you know. I want to talk more about this because this is the part that is actually that when I step back and I look at getting from point A to here, this is where I know that there is a huge God out there that is working big time in my life. Because from a person who is absolutely selfish and self-centered to my very, very core. I've talked a little bit about the women that I work with and the sponsees that I have. But every now and then when I kind of objectively step out of myself and look at my life and think, there are women out there that I have sponsored that have sponsees, and I don't want to lie, that have sponsees. Jeff, sorry about that. And when I think about the ripple effect in the pond that I used to make, that negative ripple effect that everybody's terrified and the family's wondering if I'm dead, and that ripple is just going out into the universe, just that negative ripple effect that's affecting people that I don't even know that it's affecting. To today, to the tiny, tiny little bit of a ripple that I'm having in the other direction to try to do my very best to carry this message to somebody else that still suffers. I don't always know what I'm doing. I really don't. I mean, it's like half the time the girl comes to me like thinking that I can solve her problem, and I'm like, oh, you're in real trouble. Like, if I'm going to solve your problem, I can't even solve my problem. Like, I can't even run my life, much less your life. You need God for that, right? And so every now and then I got to do that double check of like, making sure my side of the street's clean, making sure that my stuff is clean so that my connection to God is good, so that I can then teach someone else how to get that connection to God. If I let that stuff start to back up, I start trying to run the show and begin to believe that I'm doing this rather than God. That's the scary part. And that's where these steps truly come in. That's where the inventory work starts to really come in. I get to go in there and dig around and be like, oh, yeah, seeing a little victim of the delusion there, you know, because I can even become a victim of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if I could only manage this sponsee's life this way, or if I could only do this, right? And the truth of all of this, guys, is that I am a real deal heroin addict. And that if I can stand up here and speak for, I don't even know how long it's been, I've just lost track of time. If I can stand up here and speak tonight and try to pass this message to someone else, and I can stand here before you and be like, I haven't had to shoot dope since October 10th of 2010. And technically, since I haven't shot any dope since July of 2010. Yeah, but the little Vicodin thing, yeah. That's a freaking miracle. That's a miracle. And that's really the most important thing that I can even say up here, is that if I can do this, then anybody can do this. I'm sure you guys have caught on to my scatterbrained ADD, can't, string coherent sentences together by now. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I have found a solution. I have found a solution to my problem. And I want to leave you guys with this. Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light, who presides over us all. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. What I can say, I'm one of those that God has come to gradually, but the effect has absolutely been profound. And I so appreciate you guys listening to me ramble on up here. Thank you so much.